America. My name is Osei-Frimpong, and you are watching The Black Athenians, and I'm coming to you on this 6th of July, and we're going to talk about black media because real power in any community is in production. It's not consumption. So anyone who tells you that, like, well, you just have to watch what you buy and you'll be fine. No, real power is what you can produce, what you can put on the market, how you set the terms and how you put it on the market. It's in production and distribution. So real economic power is going to be in like mines and like big farms and like the factors of production. Real political power is going to be in the production and distribution of not just material goods, but also ideas. It's in the production and distribution of ideas. So you really have power not by consuming ideas, but by producing them and being able to distribute them. And black people, we cannot produce and distribute our ideas because, like many things in these United States, it costs money. It costs money to establish the infrastructure to produce and distribute ideas, especially considering we've gone through so much terrorism. We've gone through so much domestic terrorism concerning every time we build up an infrastructure, like it promotes violence because they don't want us to have a communications infrastructure, or when I usually just mean white people or white supremacy, doesn't want us to have a communications infrastructure. Because a real independent black communications infrastructure might say things that make them nervous.
I'm about to say, it doesn't promote violence. It causes their violent nature to rear its ugly head.
Yeah, you know, people always talk about, like, white people, when they miss a meal, man, it gets as ugly as you want to believe it.
Tell a white woman no in an Apple store.
Yeah, tell a white woman no in an Apple store. Yeah, well, we've gotten, like, the social media has been hit by a barrage of white women behaving badly. First, that woman who called the police on the barbecue in Oakland's Park, and then the other woman.
Okay, yeah. Can we count how many times this week? 3 stories of white women calling police on black people being present. Cutting grass.
Yeah, I heard about that.
The kid who was cutting grass. Then there was the property manager calling on the family because the father had his feet in the pool with clean socks on. And that wasn't appropriate pool attire. Kind of like all those Budweiser koozies and other things. I mean,
yes. We criminalize, and I say this, whiteness starts at home. So we need to look at the white family. We need to, in a well-ordered world, people know what the Moynihan report was. That report came out in the 70s that says everything that's bad in the black world is a part of the black family. America is what it is because of the white family. That's all of it. Like Trump loving America, that starts at home. So if we're actually going to get to a better America, it's going to be through actually taking a hard look at the white family. But that's not what this is on. This is on black media. And the production and distribution of ideas is where power is. We can't produce and distribute our own ideas because we don't have the capital. And we don't know where that's the fight is. And we don't understand that that's the fight. So I'm going to explain this. I'm going to explain why so many people, including Ida B. Wells, W.B. Du Bois, A. Philip Randolph, moi, that cat in Durham, I keep forgetting his name. There's a guy in Durham, I know YouTube knows he owned a paper in the 20s, 30s, 40s. Smith, find out for me. We'll find out. I'm sure chat. Put it in the chat. The guy, he's in Durham, black, independent media, 30s, 40s, 50s, independent brother, chat. Do what chat does. I forget his name. That's on me, but you can save me, and when it comes up, I'll announce it. Anyway, we need our own media. We need to produce and distribute our own ideas. There's some structural barriers. I'm going to go over why media is important. some of those structural barriers and how we're going to get around it, because that's how we'll get the politics we need. And when we get the politics we need, that means we'll get those secure contracts that we need, and we'll get those jobs, because black people are working, but they're not being paid, so we'll actually start being paid for the work that we do that we need, and we'll get the management position we need, but it all starts with the production and distribution of ideas. I suspect that's one reason, and while I've never talked to Michael Thurman in Athens, I suspect that's one reason why he bought WXAG, because he wanted to produce and distribute his ideas.
Apparently the name is T. Thomas Fortune.
T. Thomas Fortune? I don't think that's it. T. Thomas Fortune. There's another black newspaper guy. Maybe it is T. Thomas Fortune. There's another black based in Durham, North Carolina. Yeah, in the 20s, 30s, 40s, like around that time. Kind of before the Civil Rights Movement. Anyway, so let's go to the opening.
Yeah. Sound good to me. Never change the ways for the world or the government. If I was the president, then I would state facts. You leave it up to me, I paint the White House black and ain't no future in your front.
Welcome back. All right, so you need black independent media, because just because something happens doesn't mean you get to interpret it, right? It still needs to be interpreted. It still needs to be interpreted. For example, President Obama's election. Depending on how you interpret it, there was a mayoral candidate in St. Petersburg. Apparently that's becoming a hotbed, St. Petersburg, Florida. There's a mayoral candidate in St. Petersburg who said, well, you know what, President Obama's election, that was your reparation. I take a different interpretation of that. But,
whoa.
Yeah.
What did we get out of that deal?
We didn't get anything. We got a black face in a high place. There's a lot of art hanging over a lot of like black church ladies' living rooms about like with President Obama coming out of the ocean, shirt off. Now, I've seen some stuff, but I was also in Hyde Park at the time.
That wasn't even a good picture.
President Obama. Yeah, like we've seen like what we got out of President Obama's presidency was a lot of good family photos of a black first family. That doesn't pay my rent. That doesn't get the lead out of my water. That doesn't get me a raise in my job or my health care.
And apparently it gets us Trump right afterwards.
And without making the arguments for why I should have any of those other things, it gets a huge backlash. So,
maybe we should just tell them how little we got. Like, maybe that's the problem. They think we got a lot out of that deal. We didn't get nothing.
But we also don't get to interpret what that means, right? We don't get to interpret what Barack Obama means. Interpret and dissimulate, because we don't have that channel, those channels of communications. So there are different kinds. So an event always underdetermines its interpretation. It even underdetermines what the event is. So it underdetermines its content, and it underdetermines its interpretation. So without a black independent press, we don't know what happens, and we don't know how to think what happens. For example, you look at Black Panther, right? Black Panther, we're pretty sure what it was. It was a movie. How to interpret Black Panther? The best takes come from black independent people. Because white people will say, oh, great movie, made a lot of money. A lot of black people who read white people will say, like, Wakanda's a great place to be. We can make a Wakanda. I should go to Wakanda. However, if you actually interpret it through an independent black lens, you pay attention to the fact that the Wakanda people don't want you.
Actually, I was watching the director's commentary on that, and that is actually the point that Ryan Coogler, he was like, how would I feel if I woke up and found out there was this perfect, most advanced society in the world in the middle of Africa, and I'm dealing with what I deal with.
Right.
And that's how he came up with how to write Killmonger.
That's why it works. So that was in the movie, but it's not interpreted in the New York Times that way, in the Washington Post that way. No, you need to get a black guy who says at every point in time in the movie, and even from the director's mouth, Wakanda is not for American black people. They hate you. They don't want you there. And that's part of our legacy. That's part of our legacy. When W.B. Du Bois says what it means to be black, is one, to know that you're that you're full human because you feel yourself, and also to know objectively, in America, you're a problem. To be a free black is to be a problem. So to hold those two ideas in your head is the American legacy for black people. And so, like, that was transmitted through the way the Wakandans thought of black people. But since we don't have an independent media and schools driving home that curriculum and driving home a way to interpret what was clearly in the movie, the message is like, you got black people from the hood going Wakanda forever. When if black people from the hood should be going, Killmonger was right. And
no lie detected.
No lie. That should be the puzzle. Was Killmonger right? Not like Wakanda. No, Wakanda wasn't about you. They don't want you. Wakanda's like Oprah. Wakanda's like Oprah. She don't have time for you Chicago Negroes. She'll open up a space in Africa. Like, she doesn't want you.
Well,
like,
I mean, she said those African children, when you ask them what they need schools and books, not Jordans and iPhones. You know, like,
yeah, she doesn't have time
the kids in Chicago just figured these things, they wanted these things out on their own, not society going, hey, this is the best you get.
Right. Marcus is pretty much telling you what Oprah said. I didn't want to open my school in Chicago because them Negroes don't want to learn. I had to go halfway across the world to find black people who wanted to learn. It's not my fault. It's you hood black people. That's Oprah. You can find it. It's in I want to say 2014 interview. It might be 2005. But
yeah, I think it was 60 Minutes
Newsweek,
or Time.
Time, Newsweek, 60 Minutes. It's out there. If you just Google Oprah, Chicago School, South Africa, you'll find out what I'm talking about. And she said, I didn't want to open. Like, there are black people in Chicago who could have used Oprah's help, but she went to South Africa because she doesn't like us. And that's Wakanda.
Well, we don't do backflips when she shows up.
We don't do backflips. She wanted someone who's like, Oprah. And we were like, yeah, we know you since you were Winnie from the block. Where's my cut? All the people Oprah stepped over to get to where she is. Anyway, so what we need...
Stepped over. Stepped over. Stepped on. I mean,
she jumped.
Grinding her
She's
heels.
not small either, so she jumped, fell back down, jumped again, put one Negro on top of another Negro, started stacking up, climbed up. Got a good running start of stair stepping. The 5 stair steps, also from Chicago. And she was like, ooh, child, and then jumped and got to where she got. And then kicked the ladder down.
She didn't really jump a lot. I mean, she
Anyway, you need black independent media to interpret what's happening, because if you don't control the interpretation, you still will be confused. And this is one thing that I run into. 4th of July brings out barbecues, and I run into more nonsense at black barbecues than you would have to believe. And understand this, I blame black people last. I blame the media, I blame the propaganda, I blame these white teachers, I blame black people last. But this is the result of inappropriate propaganda. This 4th of July barbecue, I had to listen to some cat tell me that, like, well, what we need to do, and you remember, I'm in Athens, Georgia, where most black people, except for 50, maybe 60 families, are poor. 40 of those 50 families are, like, middle class, and still, like, dicey white middle class. They're definitely black middle class, but still, like, white people would be like, why are you here? And then, like, 20 families out of 40,000 might have some money that even white people would be like, that's some money.
No. They have credit.
10.
They have credit.
But, like, they can get, like, 10 black families out of 40,000 people have the kind of money that white people will be like, all right, that's decent money. But that's 40,000 people when, like, 35,000 of them are just straight up poor. So I had one of these cats tell me that, like, what we need to do is just get our money together. The problem is we don't have our money. So we get our money together, we'd be fine. If we just need to pool our money together. And I'm telling 40,000 people and 35,000 of them are just poor. No amount of pennies like it's going to buy 35,000 houses. Like no amount of pennies is going to make a down payment. Or like it might make one down payment, but then you still have 34,499 people left. Like, so it's not about pooling our money together, and it's not about our consumer habits, because that's part of the con. It's about getting our cut of the $8.5 billion GDP that Athens produce. Once again, that's an $8.5 billion GDP that Athens produce. We have 2 big hospitals. We have a university, a flagship university in the state of Georgia, and we have an infrastructure, including like schools. And so like if we just got our fair share of the 8.5 billion, and since we're about 28% of the population, we used to be half the population when the town was started. So I want like a third of the 8.5 billion. I want a third of the 8.5 billion, and there's not going to be justice in Athens until black people have a third of the $8.5 billion GDP. We will not get the third of the $8.5 billion GDP by pooling our little pennies together. We'll get it by using political power to force those contracts and force those on-the-job training for black workers, because we were locked out of those contracts for, Athens has been around for 150 years. So we've been locked out for 150 years because we're still not in. We're still not in.
I'm about to say, we still don't even know when half those contracts come up.
Exactly. And they've been passed from white cousin to white family. And we don't know when they come up and when they get. And that's, once again, we don't know when they come up. You know what could tell us when they come up? Independent black media that's circulated in town. We would know when contracts come up. That's the information, because they're not going to tell us. Like, they will not tell us.
They don't even tell us that they're giving babies free swimming lessons. Every 5-year-old in this town can get free swimming lessons. They didn't tell us that.
And we're not the best swimmers. This is something we could learn how to do. But yeah, so we need to, and this is Black Athens. As soon as you get outside of the Athens, the communication infrastructure gets real dicey. From Monroe to like Sandersville, we're talking like talking drums, because they don't have internet. Forget there's no communication. So we need to start prioritizing a black communications infrastructure that's not just black targeted, right? So what's black targeted? For example, BET is black targeted. It's owned by Viacom.
Jesus.
BET, the Breakfast Club, is black targeted. You got Charlemagne the God. It's black targeted because he misspells 2/3 of his name.
I remember when BET was actually in D.C. and run by black people.
Yeah, it was run by black people. And like, say what you want about Ebony or Jet, but it was run by black people. So now it's it's black targeted, but not black owned. And then there's black owned. And Byron Allen out in California, if you don't know who Byron Allen is, he's actually a pretty interesting dude. He's one black guy with serious money who is actually independent. They call him like a former comedian, or they call him a former talk show host. But really, he's a movie mogul. I mean, he's an independent. He's a entertainment mogul. He's a legit mogul, not like even Diddy Combs or Jay-Z. He's a legit mogul. He's like Dick Clark. He's just been kind of buying up stuff.
So he's not borrowing money from his white friends to pretend like he can buy a whole sports team.
Exactly. And he'll tell you how he got his start. He got his start by like a Jewish guy he knows taking him around to a Jewish wedding and having the Jewish guy introduce him to all the Jewish friends, saying, you need to advertise on Byron Allen's show. You need to advertise on Byron. No, I don't say this. Yeah. And that's how he got started. And that's what, like, that wedding and the capital he got from that wedding is what allowed him to start making moves. Because before, for like a decade, he was trying to make moves without that. But then after that wedding, like a month later, like Nabisco's calling him saying they want to advertise on his stuff. So, so Nabisco money is real money. Nabisco money, like Kellogg money, is what you want. It's like when Halliburton says, like, we want to buy 15 seconds on your spot. Like that's when you have real money. So what happened was Byron Allen got that hookup, parlayed that into like a media empire, Entertainment Studios. Byron Allen, great guy. There's a few interviews he did with Antonio Moore. Check them out. They're really good. Also check out Antonio Moore. He's fantastic. So what happens when you don't have a black-owned media? What happens? Well, you get stories like this. Give me the CNN clip, because I learned something. Oh, no, that's a good clip anyway. That's a good clip. Can you read that? Because I can't see. Can you read that to the people?
The modern schooling system isn't designed to teach students important skills or important facts, but important narratives. It's like a really long prerequisite class for consuming mass media. A building you send children to for 12 years so they won't scarf at CNN.
Yeah, I think that's actually Caitlin Johnstone. She's hit and miss, but this is actually right. This is actually right. The goal of schooling, if you don't watch out, isn't to teach you, reading, writing, arithmetic, not to make you a great citizen. It's to teach you certain narratives. It's to teach you to accept certain narratives. And one of those narratives is that it's black people's fault that we're broke. It takes an entire 17 years. This is why a lot of us drop out, because if you don't accept that narrative, you end up in ISS.
A lot.
No lie detected. That's just the truth. If you don't accept that narrative, you end up in ISS or you end up suspended. But if you don't watch out, the purpose of your school is to get you to accept certain narratives about yourself. And these narratives might not be calibrated for your community uplift. They might be calibrated for the comfort of your white teacher or the comfort of the school board or the comfort of the state. So you have to watch out, what is the purpose of schooling? Is it to condition me to accept these narratives like it's my fault? Is it to condition me to accept the narrative that, my problem is I buy too many Jordans and I my hair weave? That's my problem. Is it to condition yourself with that narrative? Because I've heard people with $30,000 in student loans, $40,000 in student loans, $50,000 in student loans say something like, well, our problem is that we buy Jordans. No! That $100 pair of shoes is not going to do it. I said go ahead and buy those Jordans. You got $50,000 in student loans. Saving up, get your hair done. At least you feel good about yourself. That's not your problem. You have $50,000 problems, not $35 problems. And if you confuse one for the other, what you do is you end up scrimping and saving and not getting your edges right or whatever. And then 2 months later, forget that. 5 years later, you scrimp, save. You're still only making $10, $12 an hour. So you've saved up $6,000 and then your car goes out. So you've done all of that. You've foregone movies. You don't have your kicks. You've done all of that, but because you're not making any real money, it's all wiped away. It's all wiped away by a transmission, or your cousin gets sick, or your nephew needs a lawyer, and anybody who deals with lawyers knows that gets real expensive real quickly. So your $10 an hour that you've saved up, $10 an hour that you've squirreled away, not going to the movies, will get sucked up in your nephew's bail and lawyers' fees like this.
I'm still looking for all those lawyers on TV who just do it because it's the right thing without getting paid. I haven't found any of those.
No, lawyers got to eat. The goal is to get them to not eat you. The snack. We want a symbiosis. Not parasites. There's a difference. So you have to watch, right? So if you don't control your own media, the narrative, then whatever happens gets interpreted by someone else. Black poverty looks like not the legacy of generational slavery, and then after slavery, terrorism. Give me the kids picking cotton. This is in the 20s, right? So these were convict lessees. This is ISS before they had ISS. Right? So let me tell you something about the cotton economy in the 18th and 19th and early 20th century. It was what we think of as oil. It was a huge global economy. The cotton economy didn't just disappear in 1964 with the end of slavery. We still needed Negroes picking cotton. because we didn't have all the automation, right? So we still needed people picking cotton and like cultivating the fields and doing all of that. So we needed dependent labor. So how we got these people picking cotton is like, all right, so we put restrictions on their ability to buy land. We just cut them out of capital, number one. And then we put restrictions ability on what land they could buy. And then we put restrictions on what they could grow on that land. So they couldn't grow vegetables and they couldn't grow food to feed their own family. And if you can't do that, then what do you end up growing? You know what you end up growing? Cotton, right? So we needed a dependent landless labor force at the end of the Civil War. And we couldn't do it through official slavery, so we just did it by locking people out in starvation. So you just kind of ended up a sharecropper or a tenant farmer that ended up buying cotton. Ended up growing cotton because the global economy, it was oil. It was oil. Because remember, before, like, I want to say the early 20th century, people had one shirt. Well, they had two shirts. They had the church shirt, and then they had the work shirt. And like now all the clothes you see, that's like that. And before like polyester and synthetic materials, like that was all cotton. So the cotton economy, it was sails, it was linen, it was everything. The cotton was in everything. Rope, so the cotton economy was bigger than you can imagine. The only thing that's even close is how we think about oil right now. So we needed people to pick cotton. So the kids you see on your screen right now are the convict leasees. Those are kids who were scooped up for being truant, scooped up for, not crossing the street when a white woman passed on the other side. And they're now in their prison garb picking cotton. And that's the early 20th century. That went on through the 50s. So,
in chains with tools bigger than them.
What's up?
In chains with tools bigger than they are.
Yeah, because we're talking about 6 and 7 years old on to 15. So that should be taught in schools because we're talking about Georgia, so that's part of Georgia history. So why isn't that part of the Georgia history that's produced and distributed and disseminated? Because since we're talking about the early 20th century, like you can find a documentary. These people are still alive.
I took Georgia history in 8th grade. I did not learn about any of this.
These are grandparents. Like some of these people are like, they're still alive, and they were still used by the United States economy because we needed black people picking cotton. So we found any old reason to scoop them up and put them in the cotton fields.
So you mean kind of like how we need people to wash state troopers' cars, so we just pick them up for no reason?
Very similar. Or we need a lot of these municipalities, we need to make budget. Before Mike Brown got shot in Ferguson, I think fines and warrants were 20% of Ferguson's budget. So if you're not committing a crime, we need to have you commit a crime to make our payroll. Because, these cops have houses. They need to buy.
Very nice.
Like they have mortgages, and like we need a steady income. And when 20% of your budget's on warrants and fines of black people, we need to keep criminalizing black people just to make the county payroll. Or old white families get very, very upset. So to tell this story, you need independent black media, not just black targeted media like BET that's run by Viacom, because or black targeted media, like depending on who you talk to, Shonda Rhimes shows, because Shonda Rhimes shows will get you confused about black life. They got a lot of people thinking they're going to be Kerry Washington. I always tell I knew this to be the side. I'll tell you. No, I'll tell you when I knew this was a problem. I was in Chicago about 7 years ago, and there was a sister I was catching a ride with, and we were just chatting, and she had just graduated from college, and she was lamenting her inability to find guys. She was like, I just want a nice regular guy. Why can't I find a nice regular black guy? I just want a nice regular guy, like a nice anesthesiologist.
I've never met one of those.
A black anesthesiologist? I know one, and I'm from LA, and my mom's a nurse.
Yeah, I raised a family of nurse.
I just want a nice regular guy, like a black anesthesiologist. So that's someone who's a little bit confused about black life. When you say a nice regular guy, that means you just want a nice guy who can cook. You should be happy if he can cook and can rub your feet when you get home from working, because he might not work because the private economy is not the best for black people. You just need a nice guy. You just need when you say a nice regular guy, you just need Yeah? Am I
Something
good?
shifted.
Oh, okay. All right. So when you say you need a regular guy, that means you just need a regular, nice black guy, which means someone who can hold a job most of the time and treat you well. Because the history of America is the history of black men being employed sometimes. Black women have always been employed.
Wait, I can't even spell that.
Spell anesthesiologist, because you don't know any. You don't know any. You don't know. You can spell funkadelic. Someone said I can't even spell anesthesiologist. Yeah, because you don't know any. You can spell funkadelic. It's still, I know people in suburbs who can't spell funkadelic, but you can do that.
I'm trying to think. Let's just be clear. Aunt, former head of psych nursing for Johns Hopkins Bayview. I don't recall a single black anesthesiologist in all the parties I went to.
They exist outside of Shonda Rhimes shows, but not in the numbers you think. There are like 4 of them.
Well, we do have we do have a black brain surgeon.
Yeah,
of course,
like
he does make us think brain surgery may not be that hard.
Yeah, I mean, all he did was brain surgery. Then I did other things, like housing policy, but like there are black anesthesiologists, but not in the numbers where you can call them regular. When you're talking about regular, you mean a black security guard. You mean if you're trying to find a good, stable black man, you're looking for a black maintenance man. You find yourself a good black garbage man like Rock. Or if you're in Atlanta, a good TSA guy. A guy who works for the Atlanta Hatfield. The TSA, that's a good. Say what you want about, what's his name? Kasim Reed. Say what you want about Kasim Reed, but I go to Atlanta Airport and I see a lot of black men working. I do not see a lot of black men working everywhere else. But I go to Atlanta Airport, I see a lot of black men working. They're not making anesthesiologist money, make no mistake. But they got a good job. So when you're thinking about you just want a good black man, you should be like, I need to go TSA and like maybe look cute the next time I get my little.
You can't. They go through if you're a black woman and got your hair all done, they go through it and mess it up before the flight.
I'm just saying. I'm just saying. We're
some rules
about our situation, and we're confused about a situation because you got Kerry Washington, or you got Shonda Rhimes shows telling you black life.
Who wants to be the side chick? That is not.
Oh yeah,
Scandal is a show
like
about the side chick of the president.
Yeah, that is a problem, isn't it?
Yeah,
and she doesn't have any kids. I do think it. I'm going to say this once. It's weird that there are so many successful black people who are hold up as models of success who don't have kids. I'm thinking about Oprah and Condoleezza Rice.
Let me be clear. The only black character on a Shonda Rhimes show that I have found completely, just perfectly ideal is the short black doctor on Grey's Anatomy. She has a kid. She's awesome. And she takes nothing from anyone else. That's it.
And, right. And she married an anesthesiologist. See, this is
the black anesthesiologist. Oh, that's right.
This is how that. So people will be like, I could be like her. No, your dating pool is not anesthesiologist. I don't care what you do on Tinder, how you set the.
And ain't no anesthesiologist ever dealt with look like that man. I'm just saying on that one.
Well, that's another thing, but it gets us confused. So when you grow up thinking that your life is going to be a Huxtable life, that's just not black life. And that's a problem. And there's nothing wrong with that, and it's not our fault for our consumer habits. It's not about the weaves and the Jordans, because you want $100 Jordans away from being that. You're not even $100 Jordans every year away. You can you could save up your Jordan money every year for 10 years. You still don't have doctor money. First of all, those doctors spend that on thinking about going to a vacation. Right? So let's not pretending that people get to where they get to by saving. They get to by investing, and either investing in themselves, but that's tricky. But usually you get to where you get to in America by thinking about your grandfather. So your grandfather, and this is multiple, both theory and empirical. If you want to know where someone's going to be at without a strategic intervention, look at their grandparents. Because without an intervention, the same culture and sensibility will get transmitted. Without a strategic intervention, that means if your grandfather's a dentist, you're going to be a dentist. If your grandfather's a sharecropper, without a strategic intervention, you're not going to be a sharecropper anymore because we have cotton gins and stuff. You're just going to be broke. Like, without a strategic cultural intervention, a serious cultural intervention, you're going to be with the political terrorism that, like, controlled your grandparents is going to, like, also shape your political sensibilities. Right? So, where was your grandfather in terms of political sensibilities, in terms of, like, awareness? That's, like, without a strategic intervention, that's where you end up. And I will say how this confuses people and how recent immigrants get weaponized against us. My mom's from South Carolina. My dad's from Ghana. Listen. How do I say this? All right, so there's a great piece by Antonio Morris, Sandy Darity, Derek Hamilton, and a fourth co-author. It says that it goes through myths of black generational wealth and how to close the wealth gap. It says that you can't look to immigrants for some sort of barometer of black success because within after a generation, they're back to where their grandparents are. So if their grandparents are a big deal in Nigeria, you know, the kids come here, they drive a cab for a year, and then their kids end up being big deals in the United States. Because we're talking about the cultural infrastructure that was bombed, literally bombed out of black America, being sustained through immigrant cultures.
I mean, and even Dr. King said that no other group came here the way black descendants of slaves did. So that to compare them... You can't. The quality of terrorism that just erased the cultural transmittance, which is kind of like an inheritance, cash inheritance, but it's different, but very similar. The quality, because like we're going to talk about later about how we're running a print company and how it's very important and you should support black businesses. But the only reason we can run this print company is because the guy who's doing a lot of the print management, Dad, worked for Xerox. Yeah. No, I mean, I come from a family print people. My great uncle ran Washington Hospital Center's print shop, offset printing. I've been around printing all my life.
3 generations makes a career. So it's no shock that like we can do a print company because a guy I found to kind of manage it comes from printers. We don't come from anesthesiologists in mass. So like without a cultural intervention, you just end up where you were. Like for immigrants, they don't need a cultural intervention. What you see is a dip, but their kids end up where they were, you know, back in their home country. And you only get the cream of the crop. For example, ever since 68, maybe in the early 70s, half of all Chinese immigrants to the United States have college degrees. Half of all Chinese immigrants. I went to Berkeley. It's half Asian, so like I know a lot of Asians. Half of all Chinese immigrants to the United States have college degrees. You would think, wow, people in China really have college degrees. No, 2% of the Chinese people have college degrees. So 2% of Chinese people in China have college degrees. Half of the Chinese people you know have college degrees. So to extrapolate from the Chinese people you know anything about what's going on in China is inappropriate. Is inappropriate. That's like extrapolating from the one black guy who lives in Watkinsville to like I know a black guy who lives there. That's like extrapolating from Obama, even Michelle Obama, to like everybody else. It's not the case. I
mean, Barack grew up in Hawaii.
And his dad went to. His dad has a master's from Harvard. He applied to Harvard as a legacy. He applied so if you think like you too can go to Harvard Law School, well, can you check that legacy box? But since we don't get to interpret Obama, you know, Paul Krugman and David Brooks and all those people from the New York Times get to interpret Obama, we don't get to know that he isn't like us. Michelle is closer. But Michelle is the quality of black person who probably... But Michelle's legitimately U.S. descendant of slaves, black. But it's dubious. Michelle is legit black. She's just not but she's also legit probably not the kind of black person who cares about you. There's her. She's on the level with Oprah. She doesn't have time for you. She escaped you. So the notion that what you think she wait no I live all right. So when I was in Chicago, I lived a block and a half from the Obama place in Hyde Park. Right in 2013, they closed 53 Chicago local public schools, local public schools, predominantly black and black neighborhoods, including the one Michelle Obama, and there was a big movement to keep the school open. I was part of it. I made a little video. If you scroll through my videos, you'll see the one on Panther Middle School. I wanted to keep it open because it's our local school, and like it helped, like it was the non-selective enrollment school, so it just helped regular Negroes, not like you didn't have to test to get in there. It's just like, you show up, you want to learn things, you get to go to the school. They closed it. And now they bus kids from wherever. Some of them got lost. After the school closings, a lot of black kids just got lost. We don't know where they went. So when that school was closed, that would have been Michelle Obama's local public school. That would have been Michelle Obama's local public school. Not a peep. Not a peep. Because at the time, when she lived in Chicago, she was sending her kids to the lab school. Because she didn't want...
She also is not pushing Barry to sign those agreements with community organizers for his presidential library.
There's a presidential library that's opening up on the south side of Chicago. There's a group of neighborhood people who want, like, look, this is going to jack up our property values, which means we might get priced out with respect to taxes. I need to see how this is going to benefit, like, us in the neighborhood before we get moved out of the neighborhood, now that it's, like, an attractive place to be. And Brock, and once again, you can Google this. He said, like, look, if I have a community benefits agreement about this, then like all these other groups, black groups, are going to come out of the woodwork and want something.
I know what it's like.
I know it. Yeah. I don't want to deal with all these thirsty, dusty Negroes, is pretty much what he's saying. And that's not like that. I don't think that's about community uplift. So I want to tell you that we don't get to interpret our own stories or even our own successes. We don't even get to interpret what the idea of success is, because right now, and this is what I'm going to end, and then I'm going to give the plug for the newsletter I'm starting because I signed on a machine, and so it's very exciting. We've even done our first job. Everything works. So I'm a print man. I'm in the print media. We'll talk about that later, but now I'm going to talk about I'm not even being able to define what a success means. We don't even get to define what a success means. For example, let's take the 1980 Bulls. I'm of the age where the 1980 Bulls were fantastic, or the 2010 Clippers, right? After they got Blake Griffin and Chris Paul, when Chris Paul came.
Go back to the Bulls.
Well, any one of those teams, very exciting. Did not win games. The 1986, 7, 8, 9, 1990, 1991, like Michael Jordan was not winning. Very exciting. If you look at young Michael Jordan when he came out, very agile, easily the quickest person on the court, like scored more points than anything, still lost to the Celtics. And then, still lost to the Pistons. If they ever played the Lakers, they still would have lost to Showtime and Magic. Still lost. Did not win games. Right? So you want to say like there's a way in which Michael Jordan was already a success. Was he a success though? If the point of basketball is to win games and he wasn't winning games, he had a lot of points. He had a lot of highlight reels, but his team wasn't winning. So was he a success? And that's the question. And compare that to, say, Tom Brady. Right? Tom Brady. Say what you want about Tom Brady. He's got a lot of rings.
Can't stand
And he wins a lot of games, and he's got a lot of rings. So, like, you don't even have to look at his interception to completion ratio or, like, the fact that he couldn't scramble for the first few years. Although I'm impressed that every year he seems to get like stronger and faster. I don't understand how that works.
You couldn't pick anybody other than Tom Brady.
He wins games. Like, it's not just that he wins games. His team wins games, so he does what football is supposed to do. Because it's great to be Dan Marino, but you don't have a ring, right? So it's great to be like, or Aaron Rodgers. I mean, Aaron Rodgers, I think he's got one ring. But like, pretty much, unless you win rings, you're a little bit dubious. There's always an asterisk. There's always an asterisk on Charles Barkley. I'm like, great, he's a success, but like, or like Chris Webber. There's always like, but like he doesn't have rings. So like, was he really successful at what you're supposed to do at basketball? Can you ever, and like LeBron, does he have enough? So like, the idea that success is an individual thing is a misnomer, because the game of basketball is about getting your team getting more team than the other team. So and the way we kind of evaluate individual players on a basketball team might be by their stats, but you can't evaluate their success as a basketball player by their individual stats. You evaluate their success. There's a lot of Celtics, a guy named Tom Heinsohn. There are a lot of Celtics who played ball during the 60s, got like 10 rings. They're more successful than like the 80s Michael Jordan, because they did what you're supposed to do during basketball. Now, how does that relate to our situation? We've redefined success, or we've been told to redefine success as an individual come-up. That's escaping the ghetto. We've been told to redefine success as an escaping the ghetto. Success is now a matter of what's in my bank account, not the fact that I'm surrounded by poverty. That's Jordan on the 1988 Bulls. He was still scoring 30 points, but his team wasn't winning. But he was still kind of a success, except it was just dubious, right? So that's why black people who make it are dubious success, because real success means your team makes it. Tom Brady can walk taller than, say, a Russell Westbrook. Sorry, he can. Because not only does he individually fine, but like it's certified by his whole team doing what football teams are supposed to do. Because as good of a quarterback as you are, if you're not winning Super Bowls, you might not be as good as a quarterback who is winning Super Bowls. So he could say that, like, whatever you want to say, I'm the quarterback who wins Super Bowls. I'm a success. That's what real success looks like. And black success, even if you're Oprah, yeah, are you really successful?
Well, I mean, it depends on what your goal was. If your goal was to never see black people again, other than the ones you choose to invite over, Oprah was pretty successful.
She's successful. She doesn't have to run into black people. But like, most people don't want Oprah's life. I mean, she does, let's not everybody wants one, but let's say you want a family. Real successful people, like white billionaires, can still have kids. like Jeff Bezos has a wife. Like Bill Gates has a wife. Like, white billionaires can still have kids and a family and not jeopardize that. Condoleezza Rice? I don't know.
What about Will and Jada Pinkett Smith?
Will and Jada Pinkett Smith. They have kids. They're successful. What did they have to do to get on? Right? So, what did they have to do to get
She has
on?
found a solid exception, I think, to the rule. I mean, they still don't associate with other people, but
no, they're not. I mean,
they did bring up a whole clan at a time. I mean, his ex-wife, her mom. I mean,
the only person who doesn't like Will Smith is Black Aunt Viv.
She
does not like Will Smith.
Does not like Will Smith at all.
Black Aunt Viv, because you remember during the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, there was Black Aunt Viv, and then 3 seconds later, woo, there was High Yellow Aunt Viv.
Yeah, Black
Aunt.
That woman's Twitter is worth the follow.
Black Aunt Viv does not like Will Smith.
If you don't follow her, she referred to Omarosa as Negro Rosa, and that was like I was here for
Will
this.
Smith did not get along, but for the most part, black people love Will Smith. My only problem with Will Smith is, once again, you can't be a success. He didn't like, if you have that kind of platform. If I'm doing what I'm doing with my platform, I want him to be doing more than what he's doing with his platform. I want him being Paul Robeson, or even at least Sidney Poitier. So great if he was who's the guy from the islands? Halle Belafonte.
So here's the thing. I actually like Will Smith. I like Jada. I love their kids. I do unfortunately think they've done a poor job of raising their kids with a good understanding of reality.
Yes. A lot of people are confused about reality.
I love them. I love the hopefulness that Jada and Willow put out. Right. Jaden and Willow put out.
I think After Earth kind of humbled Jaden. After Earth was a Will Smith movie that didn't do so well. It was supposed to be a star vehicle, but like it didn't do what it wanted to do because I read the reviews, and apparently it wasn't a very good movie. But like,
I watched that movie
Oh, you
hoping
did?
that it was going to be really good.
No, it wasn't really good. So the problem is, if you don't control the media, you have a lot of black people who are confused about what it means to be black in the United States. They think they're going to find a nice regular anesthesiologist, a nice regular black anesthesiologist. Like, that's an oxymoron.
So someone has a viable question for
Yeah,
you, by the
what's
way. Do you think that white America is too powerful for black people to achieve community uplift, and the only viable option for black people
Is escape.
is the individual come up?
The individual come up. Real success isn't the individual come up. Real success isn't Russell Westbrook. It's, I don't know. It's Steph Curry. It's Steve Curry. Steve Kerr or Steph Curry. It's like, it's rings. It's Tim Duncan on the Spurs. It's not Russell Westbrook. It's not real success. So is the only kind of fake success we can get the individual come up? I don't think so. I don't think so. I think if we get our politics right and we're strategic, we can get the community come up. But it's going to come through getting on the same political page in terms of not letting white liberals or even wealthy blacks who were picked, I'm looking at you, Donna Brazil, who were picked to mollify what we need in terms of our black politics. It's going to be because...
You mean that line like there's no black America or white
there is no white
America?
man. Yeah, no. It's give me the graph.
Oh,
The graph. So here's a graph of America's wealth, right? So here's a graph of America's wealth. The white line, the median wealth, is at about 116 and going up, trending up, and projected up. The black line, and this is Forbes, right? I've seen other data that says it's at 1,700 as of 2013 from NYU professor. So this is like, it's either somewhere between 1,600 and like 9,000 and trending down. So when you have a white America that's here and trending up and a black America that's here and trending down, there's at least two Americas. Because one America would be one purple line that's like holding steady or trending up. Then we are not in the same boats. That means a rising tide does not lift all boats. That means a rising tide lets other people eat our boat.
we're not in a boat at those numbers. We're in a buoy.
We're in a buoy.
We're in a buoy with a yacht.
We're in a buoy
out there.
and like the big ship's coming, and we're like, don't hurt me. I'm in my rowboat. Yeah, the waves are so big, and my boat's so small. Yeah, so that's what that means. They take their boats and then like ram our boats. So that's what happens when like there's no shared fate.
They
and
don't
if there's
even
no
notice
shared
that they
fate,
ran
we
over
can't
us.
let the people on top write the narrative because they're going to pretend that there's a shared fate. We're all doing well when the numbers say, no, you're doing better and looking to do better, and we're doing bad, and like we're not coming up, we're looking to do worse. I tell you right now, Athens is looking to like, we removed Indians. Give me the Indian. We removed Indians from Athens and Oconee County before. Is that, I should have a, maybe I didn't get the screenshot. Anyway, we removed, there used to be two tribes, the Akate and the Akani, which probably became Oconee.
Did you say Indians?
Yeah, American, Native Americans. We removed Native Americans. I mean, not that, but
He gets on rolls and just says things sometimes.
Sometimes, like, I got to get a lot of information. I don't want to keep
happens.
this short. So we removed Native Americans from this land, right? It's called the Trail of Tears. We just kind of, whoop. We decided that they don't belong here anymore, and we just wanted to move them out.
Thank you, Andrew Jackson, that guy that's still on the
Andrew
$20
Jackson
bill.
and, like, with a whole lot of support. There's a bipartisan consensus that Native American lives don't matter. So we removed them. Whoosh. And depending on who you talk to, is genocide, right? We're finding a way to remove black people from Athens. We're finding a way to remove black people from Athens. The Section 8 housing is going away. It's going the way of the dodo bird. And the public housing isn't far behind it. So we're removing, and depending on who you talk to, it could look like a genocide. Because with life expectancies going down, the farther away you get from services, and since all the services are in Athens, if you go to Madison County, like there was no hospital over there, so like you won't live as long.
Graham,
Green. I was about to say not much better. I'm talking about.
Oh no, we're not going to Oglethorpe. That's a no.
Yeah,
Oglethorpe is still a solid no.
Oglethorpe's a solid, and Oconee's got like.
Oconee doesn't want us.
Well, they have a new ordinance that says they don't build houses under $200,000, and black people, we don't have that kind of down payment. We don't have that kind of down payment, so they don't want you. So
hold on.
All the cheap housing in Oconee, all the cheap housing in Oconee's already been built. They're not building anymore. They're done with the. We have no. We like our we like the white people we have. We're only accepting people.
The
need to be
trailer
this tall to ride that ride.
The trailer park that used to be in Oconee County, over by where we were when we signed the paperwork, is now lovely townhomes. Right. And certainly, and those people were told they were buying their homes. Of course, under Georgia law, if it's been there more than 10 years, you can't move it. And you don't own the property. So when they sold the property, yeah.
So here's the deal. We're looking at removal. Call it genocide, call it the Trail of Tears. But if we don't get our politics right, at least in Athens, Georgia, and I suspect the same is being said in Richmond and St. Louis, and anywhere there's in Decatur, anywhere there's a congregation of black people,
By the way, did you see news from Macon, Georgia?
No.
They are defunding libraries, museums, and they aren't even risking us learning anything new. They're you're only going to learn what we do in schools.
No, they're in Chicago, they want black people out of Chicago. That's why they closed all those schools, because you start cutting services and sending people out. We don't want you here anymore. White people want their land back. You were holding it, and now we want it. They want it back, and so that's what we're getting. And without the news, we can't get the political power, which is our real power. It's not economic power; it's political power to fight. Right? So we need to control our news, and that's why I have a machine. I have a printing press. The Black Athenians going hard copy. And if you like anything I'm doing, by the way, go to thefunkyacademic.com. Become a member. Tell your friends to become a member, because what I'm doing is important to the people. And you're not going to get it on ABC, and you're not going to get it on MSNBC. Joy Reid is not going to talk like I'm going to talk. Last time Melissa Harris Perry tried to talk like I'm going to talk, they took her show. They were like, we like the hair, but this is too black.
You were saying too much.
Yeah, you were saying too much. You're saying too much. You make us nervous, and I miss that. I miss Nerd Corner. So if you like what I'm doing, you want me to do it more, and you want me to do it in hard copy with better distribution, because thanks are nice, but thanks don't build coalitions, especially political coalitions. Money does. So you can go to www.funkyacademic.com or The Funky Academic. We own both. And it'll send you to my website. You can sign up to be a member, $5, $15, or $50 a month. Also, if you're in Athens or Coney or can drive to Athens and if you have printing needs, we have printing capacities. I'm a businessman. So I will take your money and give you good copies, color copies too. And we got a layout guy, because he's been a print guy for generations. And it's run with the Funky Academic and the Black Athenians is in partnership with Haven Business Services. Give me the logo. Haven Business Services. That's where we're running our printing out of. Haven Business Services. So if you have any printing needs in Athens, or if you don't like Belgian or Athens Printing or any of the printers you use, and you think you want to own a black printer because we have competitive or cheaper rates for all your printing needs, go ahead and call Haven Business Services at 706-850-3317. That's Haven Business Services at 706-850-3317. And that and a couple other schemes is going to fund our newsletter, where I can do this in print, and we have a distribution scheme, because real power is in the production and distribution of goods and also ideas. Real power is in the production and distribution of goods and also ideas, not just in the consumption. There's nothing about our consumption habits that we can really change. But what we can do is organize to get in the production game. But that's going to start with political organizing, and that means we need to get our information and idea infrastructure right. You need more people talking like me when I say, like, no, we need to talk about how black people are going to get a fair share, which means a third of the $8.5 billion GDP in Athens. That means a third of the good contracts in Athens.
One of the things I want to point out about Haven Business Services is that we do follow your motto. So we are designed so that our starting pay rate is $20 an hour, union shop intended as soon as the staff's on, and so forth and so on, and it's sustainable.
It's sustainable. It's a print shop. I got the machine right now. Don't make a pauper out of me. A lot of civil rights people. Thing is, also, what little black money there is above 70, and they got it maybe not the best ways, maybe above 60. Let me think. No, I'm thinking about studies I've read. Yeah, I mean, real black money is above 70, but even above 60, there is some black money. But pretty much there's no black money under 50. The black people you think have money under 50, it's because like one of their grandparents over 70 is still alive, or they're flaunting, but they're not talking about their student loans. Because it's got to be before the tuition went up. Yeah. Before tuition went up, and while housing was still cheap. So like whatever black money there is like baby boomer money, because they got in there when the civil rights through the civil rights movement, and then since they didn't do their politics right, that window shut, and their kids are now downwardly mobile. So.
I was actually thinking about that when you're talking about grandparents. Like, my grandparents both own their homes.
Yeah.
I'm actually much worse off than either of my grandparents.
Yeah, no, we're downwardly mobile. No, the baby boomers did fine because the civil rights generation actually knew their job. Now, the civil rights leaders themselves, a lot of them died broke. Even down to Martin Luther King, Hosea Williams, they all died broke. But they died broke so that we all could live. So, like, that's a success. They died broke so that we could actually get those contracts, so that people like Marion Barry could like fight and get black people those contracts. Remember when Marion Barry got into D.C., black people got 3% of the contracts. When he left D.C., they were at 47% of the contracts. I don't care about cocaine. That man got black people contracts. He was framed. I don't want to hear. I don't want to hear.
I'm a Washingtonian.
I grew up in D.C.
So, you gotta talk. Okay.
I don't want to hear about any cocaine.
Better than Sharon Pratt Kelly.
That man moved from 3% black-owned contracts to 47% black-owned contracts. As far as I'm concerned, he was set up. I don't care on what.
I don't care how much experience it looked like he had in that video. That was all set up.
It was all set up because he. I don't want to hear it. No, he was set up. He was a target. He was moving money to black people. So they'll let you say on television and in school, the problem is your consumers' habits. The problem is, you need to get your pennies together. You need to bank black. But they won't let you say, without independent black media, the problem is we need to get a cut of these white contracts. We need to get a cut. We need to get a cut of the GDP. We need to get back to be made whole from the cotton money that made America, that made white generational wealth and black generational poverty. And with that, I'll leave you. Congratulations for the Funky Academic and Other Chance Productions, and congratulations to Haven Business Services. We're in the print game now. There's going to be a black newsletter that's saying pretty much what I'm saying right now, except in print, with like a calendar and crossword puzzles and all of that stuff, all of the strategies to get this information, to get this narrative into the water. Because without this narrative, it'll be just a bunch of black people blaming themselves for being broke. And that's just not right. I blame black people last, even though the entire propaganda industry wants you to blame yourself for being broke. That's not me. Marcus, what's up?
Can I make the finder words?
Yeah.
I just decided that's what I want to do. I want to make finder words.
Finder words.
I just want to make finder words. I found out what I want to do on this part. I want to make finder words.
Okay. Everyone has their calling. So thank you for your time. I'm back next week at 4 p.m. We're going to talk about some things. I got ideas for the next show because we didn't use all the material I wanted, but I want to keep this show brief and hip so that you can watch it and have something to talk about at your book club. Cancel Sunday school this Sunday and just watch this show and then talk about what Jesus would do with me. All right. Take care, and I'll see you next week. Peace.